So, this was a video I never thought I'd see myself making. As you can tell from the image above my head, Marie Fredriksson from the pop band Roxette died today at age 61. So for anybody who knows me on social media, may know me in person, I don't do hero worship. I don't do cult of celebrity. I don't really have many heroes in my life, and most of them aren't celebrities or entertainers, but music has always held an important part of my life. It's always been first and foremost, and front and center, right up with any of the creative things that I've ever been involved in. And for every generation, there is a Beatles, there is an ABBA, there is a Bee Gees, there's a Van Halen, there's a Metallica. And my generation fell in a very unique position. One of the fondest things that I ever had growing up was the treasure trove and wealth of music that my father grew up with. My father taught me to appreciate full-length albums. My father taught me how you could tell the trademarks of a great artist because they wrote, produced, and performed their own material. And the real trademark of a great artist was the fact that you could listen to an album from beginning to end and love every song and love the vocals and the instrumentals and everything. And music was one of the few things that me and my father ever had in common. My father exposed me to ABBA. My father exposed me to Elvis, the Beatles. I sat down and listened to the Sgt. Pepper and the Lonely Hearts Club Band album, end to end, so many times. And for me, it was hard to find that group. So you can imagine me sitting in my room in 1989, listening to Z100, good old New York music station, and The Look came on. Now, for anybody who's completely oblivious, The Look is the song that made Roxette the biggest, second biggest musical act out of Scandinavia, behind ABBA. It was that song that started me on a 25 plus year trek of fandom and a love of music and a love of poetry and lyrics and vocaling and vocal reproduction. I sang for many years. Um, Marie Fredriksson, is one of the most unique voices you will ever hear. And a lot of people will dismiss their music as commercial crap. But they came from a generation much like my father. They grew up with singer-songwriters. Per Gessle, their lyricist, grew up listening to every musical genre you could think of. He was an excellent, gifted songwriter, but his songs did not come alive until he met Marie Fredriksson. Up until then, he was a Swedish solo artist. She was a Swedish solo artist. By the time they met, they were both in their 30s. They had had a long musical career exclusively in Scandinavia before they came out to the rest of the world. And boy, did they ever. And it's hard to relate the impact that this has on me. This is just hard to process. Um, for people who do not know, in 2001, on September 11th, Marie was diagnosed with a brain tumor after passing out in her home, hitting her head on sink in her bathroom, and laying in her bathroom for a period of time before her husband found her. It almost killed her. She had a less than 20% chance of survival, and the possibility of her being permanently paralyzed, incapable of performing and singing ever again, was a real possibility. She went through grueling radiation treatments and brain surgery, and she disappeared from the spotlight for almost 8 years before, through grueling recovery, learning how to read and write and walk again. She made possibly the most miraculous recovery I've ever seen an artist make in this position, next to possibly Gloria Estefan. She ended up back on the stage. She did a 150 plus show tour, recorded 3 albums before finally stepping back out of the limelight when it was obvious that the disease was affecting her again. She was sitting on stage in a chair. But thankfully, I got to see their last show in the States back in September of 2015. I'm bad with dates. I'd never seen them do a full concert. I had seen them once before. They were doing a promotional for their United States Greatest Hits package in the now defunct and non-existent Virgin Megastore in New York City Times Square. Um, it was mind blowing being there. We got there super early. I went with my mother and my brother. It was one of the last big things I did with my mom before she got cancer. And we sat there. We were there, God, 4 hours early. We got to see the band come in, and they did a little pre-rehearsal, and they did a little acoustic set, which I actually have recorded, and they actually did a radio show that morning that I also have recorded, which I might put up somewhere because it was really awesome. But that was my first exposure to them live, and it was mind blowing. Up until then, the only band I'd ever seen was the Cranberries, and it was not that great. Actually, no, yeah, was it the Cranberries? 1999. Yeah, I saw them at the PNC Bank Arts Center. The audio was horrible. The audience was shitty. It was just, one of my less memorable concert experiences. But after that, they had no American record deal. They were more centralized on doing Europe, so they disappeared from the States. So when they got back together in 2014, my dates are bad, so forgive me. But when they announced that they were embarking on a full-fledged world tour again and that the United States would be part of it, I literally shit myself. And I went and I spent money. I rarely go out and do things. I work nights. I went to this concert, and it was possibly the most mind-blowing musical experience I've ever had. She was 59 at the time, and it was as if she was never sick. She was jovial. She intimated with the crowd. Her voice was unbelievable. It was the Beacon Theater, which is a smaller, intimate setting, and it was jam-packed. It was a sold-out venue, which for a band that hadn't been back in the States for over 10 years, had no public exposure, had hardly any advertisement that they were back touring. It was unbelievable. I was blown away. So to know that one of my, if possibly my only musical hero is now gone, it just doesn't seem real, because I owe Roxette a lot, because they exposed me to a entirely broader genre of music: Scandinavian folk music, Scandinavian music, Swedish music. I ended up exploring a whole swath of music from Europe that I'd never heard before. Symphonic metal, death metal, so much stuff that if it wasn't for being exposed to international music through them, I may not still listen to any of it. I may never have known any of it. It's hard to describe the place that Marie Fredriksson holds in my heart. She's like it sounds really stupid, but she's like a second mother to me. there's something about her voice. I don't think I ever would have had the confidence to ever sing publicly if I hadn't seen her performances and listened to her vocals and seen how music gave her such a sense of bravery and empowerment. She's this diminutive woman. I don't think she's much taller than me, but when she got up on that stage, she commanded people. She had this power and this presence that you don't see. I think the only other artist I could ever compare her to would be Annie Lennox on stage. She just commanded respect, and she conveyed this power, this raw vocal power that you don't get these days. There are so many horrible studio only acts that you see live and they're just freaking horrible and they don't know how to engage with the crowd. That was not her. She was amazing. She was a rarity, and it's going to be many generations before we ever have another artist like her. And you can see their influence in so many bands, most notably Savage Garden. If anybody sits down and listens to a Savage Garden album and tells me they don't hear the DNA of Roxette in their music, without Roxette, there would be no Ace of Base. As much as people call them ABBA, if it wasn't for Roxette, you wouldn't have Ace of Base, you wouldn't have Aqua, you wouldn't have so many different musical acts, specifically pop acts that survived during a period of grunge and metal and boy bands. The world owes her so much. And I can't help but think of her family right now. I mean, we're what, a week away from Christmas? 2 weeks away from Christmas? I can't say this is surprising. But yeah, we will miss you, Marie. We will definitely miss you.